Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Loud and Mr. Chairman, for your invite today. It's an honour and a privilege to speak to you all. Congratulations on the recipients. Without further ado, you've done fantastically, and a veritable array of prizes await you. I'm here to speak to you, to make a speech on Speech Day, ironically, about speaking. Stick with me. About speech, about how many people take it for granted. How many people open their mouths and words come out. For some, it's not that easy. For some, they have to fight, they have to try hard, and no matter how hard they try, they can't speak. But more about that later on. My journey began formally in Shepherd's Bush. We moved from Shepherd's Bush when my dad joined the police force to a small Cotswold community called Stow-on-the-Wold. I'm not sure if some of you know it. It's a lovely place to be. I then went to Bourton-on-the-Water and I attended the Cotswold School where myself and Mr. Loud first met some 22-something years ago. Neither of us look old enough. I know what you're thinking. Whilst at the Cotswold School under Mr. Loud's tutelage, I learnt karate for 6 years, finally gaining my black belt in the sixth form, which is something I'm very proud of. I played rugby for Stow-on-the-Wold RFC, a fine rugby institution, and I was voted to be head boy of the school in the sixth form. I also completed my Duke of Edinburgh Silver and Gold awards whilst at the Cotswold School. My academic performance was nothing to write home about, but I left school with a lot of support, a lot of achievement, and I went to Solihull College, where I studied sports science. And that for me was when life became more complicated, more difficult. I once was asked to get off of a bus because I wasn't able to ask for a ticket. I was once had to leave the queue of a train station because I wasn't able to ask for the destination of where I wanted to go. I was unable to join Blockbuster Video. Now this for you guys is a thing of, you don't know, no idea what Blockbuster, but I guess you guys know, right? Yeah, going behind, it's out. Have you got any? No, it's out. Something else, right? But Blockbuster Video, you had to go up to the desk and you had to say your name and address to complete the form. I wasn't able to do it, so I had to sit and watch the bill and things like that in my university digs. It wasn't all doom and gloom. Moseley Rugby Club was who I was scouted to play for, and it was a good level of rugby, and I enjoyed my sporting experience a great deal. All of this, though I wasn't able to use the telephone and speaking in front of people when I was completing my HND, as it was then, was impossible. Unfortunately, it was part of the course, and some of the modules that I selected, we had to give presentations. I remember it well. Once a guy fell asleep in the back row because it wasn't the best speech he'd ever heard, and I can't blame him for that, but I'll tell you a bit about that. That's because I have a stammer. I have a very chronic stammer. I've stammered since I was 3. Apparently my parents said that I used to laugh at myself in my car seat because I was unable to say things without stammering. On a good day, my stammer was bad. On a bad day, my speech would sound like this. Literally nothing. Times were hard. Growing up in the Cotswolds was a good experience for me. I was very well supported. Friends, family, teachers would often do a lot of the speaking on my behalf. People in Stow-on-the-Wold would know that if I were to give you a cheery wave, it's fine. That's his way of saying hi. Because I was unable to speak sometimes. People would have to ask for drinks for me, for food. The phone was a no-go for me. But growing up in a very supportive school with very supportive people around me made it far easier. Leaving school, it was more difficult. I was out of this support network and I was unable to communicate. What is stammering? Well, stammering, or stuttering as the Americans call it, is a various plague, if you like, of not being able to speak, of sometimes repeating the first letter or the first sound of a word, or sometimes not being able to say anything at all, which is called a diaphragm freeze. Stammering is made worse by the fear of stammering itself. You stammer, you feel bad about yourself, the next speaking opportunity comes up, and you know you're going to stammer, so you stammer. And that is not a good place to be. Current research suggests that stammering is all because of the way that the brain is connected to the vocal cords. It's misfiring, it's sending the wrong messages. But some people you speak to in the world of stammering will say, I can remember when I was 6, my parents went away for the weekend, they left me at my Auntie Flossie's house, and that was when I started to stammer. For me, I think it's more of a hereditary neurological problem. Stammering is like an iceberg. There are 10% of the iceberg is visible above the surface of the sea. But then up to 90% obviously is often hidden. And that is very much what a stammer is. If you speak to a stammerer, and some of you may know people that stammer, traditionally men, so you might have a grandfather or an uncle or a dad or a friend that stammers. Stammering looks like people maybe tapping their leg to try and get their words out, maybe shutting their eyes and trying to force the words out, maybe looking very agitated, very concerned. That's only 10%, because what's going on inside you is another 90% of struggle, of torture, of self-hate, of guilt, of regret. Why can't I get the words out? It's not fair, so on and so forth. Famous stammerers. Mr. Loud and myself are big Star Wars fans. Samuel L. Jackson stammers. So does James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader. Gareth Gates is a good friend of mine, and he stammers. Rowan Atkinson as well. Sir Winston Churchill, Marilyn Monroe, and obviously the guy that used to be the king. I am on the Maguire programme, which is a worldwide organisation that doesn't make a profit, and it helps people to gain control of their speech. I attended my first Maguire programme course 16 years ago, not far off. So I've been on the Maguire programme for a long time. Made by a man called Dave Maguire, who is an American, and he had a stammer himself, and he found that when he did a number of different things all at the same time, different types of therapies combined with a big costal breath learnt from opera singers, he was able to speak. Unfortunately, he decided to share it with the rest of us, and I'm very grateful to him. I found out about the Maguire programme in Stow World Library, where my mum, God rest her soul, saw an advert for the Maguire programme. Why, after 4 years, there was an advert in Stow World Library for the Maguire programme, I will never know. But I'm glad there was, because Mum and Dad were the driving force behind me attending my first course, and I went back to my second year of my HND a completely different person. That's led me on to challenge myself in ways that maybe other people don't. Life to me is all about making myself feel uncomfortable, putting myself into challenging situations, forcing myself to speak. Stammering is all about going through life looking for a reason not to speak. But on the Maguire programme, we encourage the people that we help to look for reasons to speak. Go out there, speak to people. The guys raising money in the high street, most people give them wide berth. Sorry, on the phone. Stammerers, go and speak to them. Maguire program, go and speak to them. We now look for reasons to speak. I went to Brunel University, having successfully graduated from my higher national diploma. My first job out of university was as an assistant PE teacher in Cirencester Kings Hill School. I then went in a short career in leisure management, then into sports development, and now I work at Hartbury College in Gloucestershire as a university lecturer. All of those jobs involve a lot of speaking, a lot of challenge. And if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. If you want to change, you have to challenge yourself, whether you want to give up smoking, whether you want to reduce the amount that you drink, whatever the challenge is, you have to challenge yourself in order to change yourself. I've previously said that life for me is about making myself feel uncomfortable, putting myself into difficult situations. I currently coach at Tewkesbury Rugby Club. Having been a rugby player, I play occasionally. It takes me about 3 months to recover every time I do, so I try not to do that too often. I coach the under-8s age group, and you haven't coached anything until you've coached young children. I don't care who you are. Stuart Lancaster, I'm sorry Stuart, or Mr. Lancaster. Unless you've coached young children, you haven't coached. Every Sunday morning I go and coach rugby. I've been fortunate enough to present a live radio show, again to focus my speech, which was imaginatively titled The Rich Whincup Show. And as I said, every day, Monday to Friday, I now am a university lecturer lecturing on sports business management, sports coaching and sports performance at Hartbury College. Life is about challenges. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. About a year ago, my life took a slightly different turn when I saw a programme called Educating Yorkshire. Did anyone see that? Educating Yorkshire. Musharraf Asghar, is that a familiar name? Musharraf Asghar was the guy who wore the headphones. He was a stammerer on the television, and his teacher, Mr. Burton, said, "Hey, Mushy, put on these headphones and try reading." Mushy was able to read fairly fluently with the use of headphones. Well done. But he was wearing headphones. It was not a sustainable technique to help him. It was not a lasting technique. So Mushy started to look for different things. That's where a group of us on the Maguire programme targeted Mushy, and we said, "Mushy, we can help you out." The TV people got hold of this, and they said it would be good to video it, wouldn't it? Make a documentary. And my phone rang when I was in Eastbourne watching my children on an inflatable slide. And they said, "Rich, we've got Mushy coming on the Maguire programme." I said, "That's brilliant. We want you to instruct the course." I said, "That's brilliant, but slightly nerve-wracking." And so Stammer School was produced, was filmed, and was broadcast last year. If some of you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube, I think. It's a good watch. I've never worn makeup before, but as you can imagine, my head reflects a lot of light on the camera, so they had to put a lot of makeup on me, which was no bad thing. The television programme was very well received. We were trending 4th in the UK on Twitter. We were in numerous magazines and publications and newspapers, both regionally and nationally. In the build-up to Stammer School, I was interviewed on the Victoria Derbyshire show on BBC Radio 5 Live. I was fortunate enough to appear on This Morning with Eamon and Ruth. Lovely people, lovely people. Ruth doesn't wear the same pair of shoes twice on the television. There you go, you can take that with you. It's a true story. I then went away from the ITV studios, got on a train to Bristol, and appeared 2 hours later on BBC Points West. It was a crazy day. I then went home and watched Stammer School with my family. It was a brilliant experience, and many people have now joined the Maguire programme because of the success that Stammer School was. I've been sent random tweets by people saying, "Oh, isn't it great what you do? It's tremendous, it's fantastic." I get asked for selfies in places, which is lovely, and I get recognised in Morrison's Tewkesbury. "Hey, aren't you the guy from the thing?" I think I am. One woman was very emotional in the frozen aisle in Tewkesbury. True story. And she said, "Oh, it's you from the thing. It's a wonderful thing that you do." I was like, "Oh my God." So I said, would it help if I gave you a hug? Because we're in the chiller, we could share warmth. It was a lovely hug. It was a lovely hug. But it's been really, really great since Stammer School. So great that I get asked to do this kind of thing. And in September or October, over in the building over the nice lawn, I was invited here to give a speech to the Round Square conference. And Mr. Loud and I went to grab a drink from the canteen, and I noticed the Duke of Edinburgh award board in the canteen. I said, is that quite a big thing here? And he said, yeah, it's a massive thing. We do a lot of good work with the DV. I said, oh, I mentioned it in my speech. I'll lean more heavily on it. So I lent heavily on my experience of the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme and how it's given me a lot in my life, and how friends that I shared a tent with are now godfather to my two children. And a lady came up to me at the end and she said, oh, here's my card. I said, oh, thanks very much. Nice. And she said, my husband is the CEO of the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. I said, that's tremendous. She said, we'd like you to come and meet him. I said, I'd be thrilled to. And then the day continued, and we had a nice time. After the meal, she said, oh, I've spoken to my husband, and he said that he'd like you to come down to St. James's Palace in London and present some awards. After I got up off the floor, I said, yes, I would love to. Brilliant. And so me and my dad and my wife went off to St. James's Palace and had a lovely day out. Sadly, whilst I was giving my presentation in the Queen Anne room, a guy was sick, not because of one of my jokes, I think, but he was overcome with nerves. I hope they were okay with me presenting the awards, because I got mine from Michael Fish, the weather guy, that forgot to predict the hurricane that happened. He said to me, great hair, as I went to collect it, because I didn't always look like this. Whilst there, Prince Edward was introduced to me. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness. And he said, oh, pleased to meet you. Thanks for coming down. I said, really, it's fine. And he said, we'd like to be more involved. I said, that would be lovely. Thank you. He said, Peter will talk to you in a minute. I said, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Your Highness, Your Highness. I was just glad I didn't fall over, headbutt him. It's a big thing. With that, the guy afterwards said, well, we'd like you to become an ambassador of the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. So that's tremendous, thank you. So I now travel around to schools, giving out presentations, and I can't have done a bad job at the Palace before, because I'm going back there in a few weeks' time to give more gold awards out. So thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Loud. Tremendous. But again, more speaking challenges, more challenges to make myself look uncomfortable. Because if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Mr. Loud this morning spoke in church, and he gave his 5 top tips for success for the leavers as they go on through life. I'm going to give you 2 more. The first one is always say yes to stuff, because you don't know where it's going to lead. If I hadn't said yes to Mr. Loud's invitation to come and speak to you that day, or speak at the school, I wouldn't have met the lady from the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme, and I wouldn't now be an ambassador, having a thoroughly lovely time, wearing a nice tie and pin badge. If I hadn't have said yes to instructing Stammer School, I wouldn't have had that hug off that lady in the frozen aisle at Morrison's. So always say yes to stuff within reason. The second is a lesson that I was taught by a man who's sitting not too far away from me now, is that if you know where you're going, or where you know where you want to go, it's okay if you have to take the long way round. So I go and give a speech to people, and it's called Taking the Scenic Route, because my life has been all about taking the scenic route. I know where I want to be. For me personally, I know what success looks like. But you guys, don't be afraid of taking the scenic route. If you do, stop now and again to admire the view on your way round, because it might be better than you expect. One final thing about the Maguire programme. A couple of years ago, I started my PGCHE qualification as part of my university teaching career. And we were introducing ourselves, always a stammerer's worst fear, the creeping death we call it in stammering circles. Hello, I'm Chris, I'm such and such. Hi, Chris. You can see it coming up. Whew. So deep breaths. Hi, I'm Rich, and just so that you know, I have a stammer. So if I pause or take a deep breath, don't worry, I'm not hyperventilating, I'm just doing what I have to do in order to get my words out. And a guy, I noticed him sitting across the room. That's interesting. And he stayed around, and he spoke to me at the end. He said, "Hi, Rich. Really interesting what you said about, what is it? Oh, the Maguire program, that's right. I have a son who's 13 that stammers. It's really bad, but he hides it. He doesn't, we can see him substituting words and things like that." I said, "Oh, maybe we can help him." I said, "He's a bit young at the moment, but maybe we can give him some help." So he took the details about the Maguire program and spoke to him every week, didn't really talk about it. On Monday, I received a phone call from a young man called Will, who said, you know my dad?" I said, "Do I?" He said, "Yes." I said, "His name's Andrew." I said, "Is it?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Will, you're going to have to help me out. Put your dad on." His dad said, "Oh, hi Rich, how are you? And I'm listening to his voice, I can't recognise it. I said, "Look, dude, you're going to have to help me out. I've no idea who you are." He said, "We were on the PGCE. I asked you about Will Stammer, about the Maguire program. Well, he's on it now. And I'm thrilled that you're his coach." I thought, "That's tremendous." And he said, "Because when I met you, I knew there was hope for my son," which is fantastic. So thank you very much for listening, and all the very best in the future to you leavers. Thank you.